This is the A to Z podcast. Expert insights on leadership, business, real estate, investing, and growth.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to this podcast. Today, we're going to talk about one of the most important competencies that you need to succeed in any endeavor, whether you are a professional, leader, entrepreneur, or investor. And we have an expert who is Persuasion authority. I'm going to invite him, and he's going to share with us his stories and the experience he have had, and it's going to be very, very powerful. Derek, I appreciate you for being here, and thank you for the podcast, for coming to the podcast.
Thank you, AZ. I'm honored to join you. Thank you.
I want to start a little bit about your background. I know your story, very fascinating story that you have, but I want our audience to know about you a little bit. So I want to start with your service. I know your family, you have served this wonderful country. You were in Air Force. I want to start from there.
Correct.
When did you join the Air Force? Do you have any memory or memories when you were in the Air Force?
Oh, yeah, of course. You know, that's one thing about your service that you never forget is your time in. And, that's where you develop a lot of camaraderie with your fellow servicemen and your brothers in arms, so to speak. So, it was a while back. I mean, it was right out of high school. I had an appointment to the Air Force Academy, but I couldn't be a pilot because I have astigmatism in one of my eyes. So without really thinking too much more about that, I just went in and enlisted and joined. It was back in 1986, right out of high school, literally. So within a few months of me graduating, I was in, and it was a really special time. Served 4 years active duty, 4 years in the reserves, exited as a staff sergeant, and lots of good stories. We could have a whole podcast probably just on some amazing stories and how that really helped me develop into the person I am today. Of course, being with those background experiences, it was amazing. Yeah, it's an honor for me to serve my country, and I'm the third generation actually. So just to follow up on that, my grandfather served in World War II. My dad served with multiple combat tours in Vietnam, and for 25 years. And it's an honor to serve this great country, and definitely the honor is mine.
You know, my father was a soldier, and I also come from a soldier family, and it's very fascinating that your entire family have been serving this country. And I want to take it to another interesting and fascinating story that you have. When we first chatted, the moment you realized that I came from Ethiopia, you immediately shared with me your mom's story and how that's related with Ethiopia. Give us a little bit background about the connection your mom had with Ethiopia.
Yeah, sure. Well, since we're a product of our background and our environment, right? So as my mom and her background are really important in helping, me become the person that I am. And, after she graduated her bachelor's degree in nursing, she went right into service and was a missionary nurse in Ethiopia. So she served for about a year over there in a small village, and they only had power for about 6 hours a day. And so I grew up hearing her stories about her time over there and just how amazing the people were, and the spiritual connection that she had with people in Ethiopia. So I feel like we're kindred spirits right off the bat.
Thank you. I know she is no longer with us. I would have loved to meet her and say thank you for her service. It takes selflessness to go in that kind of environment where it was, I think, 30, 40 years ago. She was in that environment to serve others. So I want to thank her for serving our community. I want to talk about your diverse experience. I know from Silicon Valley to MetLife and in Sigma 6 and Yellow Pages and so many experience, whether this is consulting or insurance and so on. You've been serving in many diverse industries. What I want to know is the place of discipline. You've been successful in all of these industries, and you have evolved. And today we're going to talk about persuasion. This is the result. This is the result, I believe, because if you don't have discipline, for example, to stick into it, follow up to the people that you close, you won't be successful. And I want to know the place of discipline in your life.
Wow. Well, definitely, that definitely starts at home. Being raised, in with a military father, and having discipline, not just a military father, but a graduate of West Point Military Academy. So very proud of my dad for his service and, all the great lessons that he's taught me growing up. So yeah, definitely growing up in a disciplined household. I was always a self-starter and everything, but the discipline definitely started with my dad, continued when I went in the Air Force as well. And that just kind of carried forward in everything that I do. And you're right, that is such an important part. That's probably one of the most important parts. It's just like I am with my working out, everything else in my personal life, being highly disciplined. I mean, I've got 33 years in a row that I've had my gym membership, for example, and just being disciplined in all different areas of my life. So spiritually, physically, mentally, keep myself sharp in all regards. But yeah, that's one of the greatest attributes, I think, most important thing for success just about in any field.
Since we're going to talk about persuasion, I would love to hear your experience with Yellow Pages. We're in a different world, but you were there.
Oh my gosh.
Back, when? I don't know. Yellow Pages.
Like 25 years ago. Yeah,
yes,
they actually had a book. I mean, any younger people watching this podcast are not going to have any idea what we're even talking about. I mean, it's kind of become a joke even in movies recently. Like, what? Yellow Pages? I mean, you think I'm like 90 years old or something, that I was actually in that field.
My question is, yes, we are in social media and digital era, but I'm sure you're going to tell us every experience you've had when you were selling Yellow Pages. I'm sure many of those skill sets are transferable today. For example, Warren Buffett, he was selling magazines, he was selling newspapers when he was young. And all of those experiences, connecting with people, persuading people to buy, subscribe, all of those experiences, they helped him to become the top dog in the area of investing. In your case, I know you are a highly persuasive person. I'm sure that there is something that you trace back to the Yellow Pages era. Sure. Would you mind to tell us a little bit about?
I think even before that, we'll step back, even go back further, go back till I was like 15 years old, 16 years old, when I was a neighborhood lawn boy and, pulling my lawnmower behind my bicycle and weed eater and doing all that stuff in the neighborhood. I wrote up these little 3x5 cards, and I put on there, the price for regular lots for cutting it, and then prices for edging and weed eating and all that. And I went door to door, knocking on the door. A couple of years later, I had several neighborhood kids working for me as well, and had a very big majority of the neighborhood that I was doing. So kind of started off back in those days, to pay for, just extra stuff, extra fun I wanted to have. And then eventually, my car and, the racing and all the other stuff, pay for my dates or whatever I want to do. But yeah, it kind of started off back then, actually, and way before Yellow Pages even, you brought back something else up. So when I got out of the Air Force, I'm scrambling, running around looking for a job. My job in the Air Force was a highly technical job. And so I've got a very, very technical background as well. Yeah, it's funny how we've, added these different things. But also, you mentioned about Warren Buffett selling magazine subscriptions. I used to sell those little door to door. They would drop us off in a van. They'd put like 10 of us in a little van that's meant for about 5 or 6 people. They put 10 of us crammed in there, take the seats out. We're sitting on the floor, and they would get in a neighborhood. We would roll out of the van. This is like one of the first things I did when I got out of the Air Force. And we would sell those little coupon books. Do you remember those? Where they had little restaurants, steam cleaning your carpets, and all these little, these little restaurant books that we would sell. And so we would go door to door, knocking on doors. And that was when I guess people actually opened the doors. It wasn't that long ago. I mean, it was early 90s, maybe 91 or right around that time frame. But that's one thing right there. I mean, very difficult to do that, getting out of your comfort zone. And so that's one thing you got to do is first thing is just be willing to try new things and get out of your comfort zone. And that's probably the story of my life, because I have such a non-traditional background. I mean, I ended up going back to school at 40 years old to finish up 2 degrees in business and finance. And yeah, just very, very non-traditional, my background, because I was working a 50-hour job when I went back to finish school. And that was very difficult, taking 9 semester hours to do that. But I'm getting off track a little bit to what you want to talk about.
Yeah,
But
it's powerful.
But that's kind of the way my life has gone, like a million different directions. And just, I've always had so many areas of interest in my life that I'd like to pursue in interest areas. And so, but yeah, the Yellow Page, working for Transwestern Publishing. So we were the number 2 phone book company in the market, behind Yellow Book, or I think it was AT&T Yellow Pages or something like that. We were the second book. So, it made it even harder because we weren't the dominant book in the market, which I looked at that as even more of a challenge, and came up with my own reasons why. You speak about, Persuasion, about why people needed to be in my book versus the other books. So yeah, there's a lot of stories with that, going door to door, and the same thing, and coming up with, unique ways to get in the door and to meet people and break down those barriers right off the bat. So, I think it's, I know the topic is persuasion, but, I think we could have a whole separate podcast on more about techniques and things of that nature. But, it started off as a young man in my early 20s, reading all those books, Zig Ziglar, Brian Tracy, going and listening to all the books. I was in the library. I was like voracious, reader, and would check out every tape and book they had on sales. I mean, from everything, from like your name, A to Z, like every book from A to Z, literally.
Yeah.
Og Mandingo. I mean, there's all these Brian Tracy. Let me see. Yeah, there's so many good salespeople. And I would go through and just listen to those nonstop in my car. I never listen to music in my car. I'm always learning something. I always got a pod since my early 20s, since tapes in my car as I'm rolling down the road or whenever I had a free minute. So that's it. But yeah, being go ahead.
Yeah, definitely. One thing you mentioned I want to emphasize is that it's a challenge of mine. I believe many professionals, entrepreneurs, and investors may be challenged. Reading is one thing. Listening to podcasts is another thing, but your experience, you go out, knock doors, you go out, practice. That's why you mastered it. And we need to know that. We need to go out frequently. Okay. Interestingly, today, you and we're going to go out. You're going to show me the ROBs. You're going to show me how it's done. Yeah. I'm actually learning from you directly as you communicate and persuade others. And therefore, we all need to go out. Another thing you mentioned, I want you, maybe you can add more comment onto that. You've been reading. One thing I realized is that if you want to go out, sell, or persuade people, you need to be knowledgeable. Otherwise, when they ask you questions outside of your profession, outside of your industry, you may not be able to answer. You may not be able to give them some context, and that may rob your credibility. They may think that you're too shallow, and they may think that you're there just to sell, not to really make them knowledgeable, answer their questions. And your experience proves that we need to be knowledgeable outside of our narrow profession or industry.
That's right. So yeah, like what we're doing 10 years now in commercial real estate, it's not just about knowing the different markets, sub-markets, knowing kind of nationally the greater, from macro to micro, kind of what's going on around the country and how, interest rates are factoring into things, and just the market dynamics across different asset classes. But, you got to have a deep knowledge. And then also, I think being able to be in the market long enough to be able to know and having seen different ups and downs in the market is really important. So, that's important. Going through the hard times and being able to stay in the market and being successful, it definitely builds a more character, and it builds a little bit more strength around you, because, like anything else, if you're going through hardships, that's when you really start scrambling and really pressing in and really learning more. So I think, being having deep knowledge better than anyone else. I like to pride myself in that, about knowing, price per square foot, for example, in every asset class we're working on, even in different, when it come down to submarkets, difference between downtown market and Lutz or somewhere else around the town. Yeah, there's a big difference on what properties you'll be selling at. And, just knowing kind of generally, what asset classes are moving in what direction. But yeah, having an understanding of the greater, bigger, larger market, and how you can be a resource to your clients. I try to be a resource in multiple ways and be kind of a jack of all trades. But I like to have deep knowledge in the subject matter as far as, the commercial real estate market in general. But, knowing and having a background as a general contractor and developer. So that's helped me with a lot of development land, and being an expert in development land and understanding how to bring properties through comprehensive plan amendments, vacating right-of-ways, doing rezonings and things of that nature. So I've been able to help a lot of my clients by doing that. I've probably all told a couple dozen properties through the entitlement process. So, and going down and just, being immersed in that market and knowing those key players in that. So yeah, that's super
definitely
important.
By the way, a couple of things that you mentioned, we need to dive in the future. We need to have other podcasts to dig deeper about your stories. Some of your stories we couldn't be able to cover today. And also, you have a lot of knowledge when it comes to the market about how interest rate, for example, or inflation impacts the market. And we need to have other follow-up episodes to work on that one. But I want to shift to today's topic, which is persuasion. Okay. And I want you to create for me and to the audience the connection between persuasion and leadership. Personally, I believe that everyone is meant to be a leader, at least for their job description, at least for their team and organization in the area of their passion and their mission. But leadership is not about giving command or telling people what to do. It's about that leader being able to sell, persuade their ideas, their mission, their products, services, deals, and so on and so forth. Mm-hmm. I want to hear from you. What's the place of persuasion or influence in leadership? Yeah. And why should people develop this skill set, the persuasion skill set?
You know what? I'm probably going to beat this up today, but you know what? It really starts with being a great listener. I mean, you've got to know your client. It's not just knowing your market, knowing the product that you're selling or whatever, what's going on around the marketplace and how you can. I mean, I've gobbled up every single book that you can possibly imagine for 30 years of, on sales and all the techniques and all the stuff. And you know what? I mean, you can boil it down, and we could have a really very specific podcast on that, even greater. But it really comes down to being a confidant and being a good resource from end to end for your clients. But also, the most important thing is just being a great listener and being able to really, really have a good understanding of what your clients are trying to accomplish, and then you kind of work around that. So you work everything around that. But yeah, you're only going to build the trust if you actually listen and you can explain back to them in a way that they understand that you're trustworthy. And I'm not always looking. It's not always about the sale. It's about developing relationships in this and every business, everything that you're doing. Because I've got people that I've had that I've sold that have followed me before, like across different multiple industries. Way back when, I think my first real sales job working for a company was selling cars for about a year and a half or so. Again, this is way back in the early 90s, right after I got out of the Air Force. So one of these things, but that followed me and then ended up buying insurance products and stuff like that for me later. But being a good confidant, all those books, I think. Yeah, there's some techniques, but I think you basically, based on your personality, you're just gonna implement some of those different techniques into your process, and it's just got to be all organic. You got to have all this stuff just kind of in your head. It's not that that you're going to pull out. You've got this, this plan. Hey, I'm going to use this technique or that technique or whatever. I think it's going to be automatic. I think just knowing some of those and understanding, personal behaviors and people. But, the most important thing is building the trust with your clients, and it starts with being a good listener more than anything.
I want you to address a couple of things when it comes to persuasion and selling. Some people, they may not have the mindset because they think they're not selling, but you keep on reminding me that everyone sells, but people resent selling. And I have seen it on a daily basis. And I was there too because of cultural things, the way I was brought up, selling myself. I remember my first resume, I had a mentor and he looked at my resume and he was like, didn't you got any award or recognition? Didn't you have some stories? Because I grew up, I was told, don't just don't talk about yourself. And because of that, selling myself or selling my product and my services was very hard, and it limited my success because of the lack of that.
That's a good point. No, that's a good point. I understand that, and you can if you're building off your success or you're leveraging other people's success. So you can talk about here's what our company did or what we've done as a company. But you're right. You're exactly right. People don't want to be sold. I mean, when you're being sold and you don't like it. So people like to buy, they just don't like to be sold. So, that's just kind of natural human behavior. That's stuff you'll read in any books that you pick up. So that's important to understand that. And then,
go ahead. I had a follow-up question. One challenge is the mindset, people believing that they're not selling, but they are selling.
They are selling.
And also, yes. And also they feel like, if they sell, I'm not talking about the literal selling, but if they sell their ideas, their beliefs, or like you say, their company, what they stand for, they may feel like they are out of order. They may feel like they are out of their comfort zone because they were not convinced that without selling, somebody, quote unquote, gonna be starved. If somebody doesn't sell, themselves, their team, their family, their organization, gonna be starved. And
everything starts with selling.
Exactly.
I mean, the truckers don't have a product to move unless somebody sells it. Then they got a product to move from the manufacturer, et cetera. Too. So it all starts with selling. So you're being persuasive in whatever you're doing. That's why I say find something that you really enjoy doing and you love to do and that you're passionate about, because then you're not selling. You're just, for me, it's not selling. This business is about selling. I'm very passionate about it. I love it. I love every single aspect about it. I love all the different asset classes and things. And I love having diversity instead of being stuck in a box with just medical offices or just industrial or multifamily or whatever those are. And whatever product it is, doesn't matter what it is that you're selling, be passionate about it and know your product very, very well. And know what the pros and cons are. Know your competitors, do a SWOT analysis and, for yourself, because that helps you to better explain it to your client. And so just finding ways that you got to make everything that you're doing your own, your presentation, your own. You got to love what you do. And people, they know when they're being sold and you're pushing them, you're going through techniques. I think even myself, I recognize a very, very good salesperson. And, I'm the kind of person that when I get cold called, I take time with those people that are cold calling me because I look at that as an opportunity. It's a free opportunity for me to learn something. Somebody's calling me. I don't give them a hard time and harass them for, calling me, not usually, unless it's very, very late or very early. But, I'll listen to their presentation. If they're good, I'll listen through. I'll give some objections and see how they roll over those objections, for example. And, the first objection is never objection. Neither is the second or third one. They just want you to explain to them why they need your product and why your product is better than the other product, whatever it is. So just explaining the value of your product. But
definitely. By the way, myself, I like what you said. If you love something, if you benefited from something, not selling to other people, not persuading other people to buy it or take advantage of is unfair. Think about it. Whenever I write a book or a blog, or when I record a video, first I have to be convinced that this is important. And also I benefited from it. And I sell or advocate or persuade others because I benefited from it and I want them to benefit. This mentality
Right.
helps me to go out and sell. Another thing I want you to address is when people think of persuasion, they may think about sell. They think it's all about selling, but you and I know that it's beyond selling. It may involve, for example, you're trying to persuade. It may require you to solve some problems. You may help them make decisions. You need to negotiate. You need to know how to present your ideas and so on.
Mm-hmm.
Therefore, presentation requires so many skill sets and competencies. One challenge people may have is not working on it. Some people see very successful people who persuade like yourself, and they may think that, hey, they're just natural. They're just born with that. And they may not go to school, practice, or
Yeah.
get mentoring. What do you advise people who are not taking this seriously and working on it?
It's hard to say sometimes because I've just, when I first got into sales, I wanted to know everything about sales, and everything I do, I just want to get in there, know everything about it. Had to go to the library back, say back in my day, like I'm not that old. I don't feel like I'm that old, 57 going on about 37 probably is where I feel. But, now you got everything on YouTube. It's like, man, this is so easy. Back when I was building my first V8 engine, when I was 17 years old, 17, man, it would be nice to have a YouTube video. But you got to like people. I mean, you have to like people. I mean, that's where it all starts. You got to be engaging. You got to like people. You got to be a good listener. I mean, no matter all the books, I can just sum up. There's so many easy ways probably to sum up stuff. But you've got to definitely use your strengths. You can choose to build on your weaknesses or delegate the weaknesses later on when it comes to managing or owning businesses and companies and things like that. But you're going to develop your own style, and that's what you have to do. And then and like I said, just you got to use your strengths.
One thing I want to talk about, which is a follow-up to what we've been talking about, is the skill sets, but also to take into account trust. How do we persuade based on trust? Which means, can we sell? Can we persuade other people without pressuring them? Can we sell by showing empathy to the people that we're trying to persuade? Can you give us the place of trust in any interaction and transaction?
Sure. Yeah. Well, like you mentioned earlier, I mean, it's about not being comfortable, maybe, or but it really starts with selling yourself, right? You got to sell yourself, I think, really before you can sell your product, and that's where the trust comes in. Is selling yourself that you're genuine, that you're looking out after your client's best interests and needs, and that's why you do a needs analysis and needs-based selling and relationship selling, I guess you want to call that. I mean, but I just look at it like we're going to do this afternoon and go out prospecting, and we're just making new friends. People make such a big deal about that, about going out there and pulling their hair out, about knocking on doors and meeting people, but that's the best thing because those introductions, you're going to find out. We're going to meet people, and then we're going to have doors open to us that you're going to be very surprised in the direction things take, and that we're going to find new clients just from people, even though they're not even looking, or you might not even understand. But yeah, the trust. You got to develop the trust first. I mean, that's definitely the core. That's the thing. But getting back to what you mentioned earlier about not being comfortable selling yourself or talking about yourself. I think at some point you really have to get past that, and you got to. You need to find. There's got to be a way for you to engage with the client first on a personal level. one way or another. So, but yeah, I think you gotta sell yourself and sell your knowledge on what you're doing. So even if you're not comfortable talking about yourself, then talk about your product, talk about what you know about the market and whatever might be interesting to them, you know. And I try to help people understand that, be more of an educator, than anything else. So maybe that's where some of the trust starts, is because I like, being an educator, and educate them and give something for free. I'm not just out to take and look for something for myself, but it's about giving back and just helping people, just making them knowledgeable on the market. I want to be the person they think about when they think about their commercial real estate or whatever it is, whatever product it is you're selling, or, you want to be the first person, the top of mind person, however that is. You've got, obviously there's plenty of strategies on following up, things like that, but you want to be just a resource, a knowledge for them. So that, I think that really goes to the trust, but really, really liking people in general. So, I mean, I just love people and love getting to know people. And I think that's the most important thing. More, even if you said, like you said, you're not comfortable selling yourself, well then, then be the expert in the market and have something you can share. There's something they're not going to know, and that you can, at some level, that you can find, you can engage with your client with, or prospect.
One thing I like what you mentioned, which I agree, is that your goal is to make them knowledgeable. When people see that you're going out there being resourceful and helping your prospects and giving them some information, answering their questions, help them gain clarity, make decisions, they see that you are a partner. They don't see you like you're selling to them, because if you didn't show up to help them gain clarity by providing information, if you were not asking them some question to make quality decisions, if you didn't persuade them to make that timely call and decision, they wouldn't have benefited. And here is one thing I want you to address, because when I talk to people about trust, they think that trust is a concept up there and it happens naturally, organically. But from my experience, I want to hear yours. I believe that trust, yes, it developed organically. It has its own natural course. But I believe great salespeople, people who master persuasion, they can immediately generate trust proactively, intentionally. There are things they do that preemptively eliminate any objections or doubt people may have about them, about their ideas, their products. Can you give us a little bit of some suggestions, or from your experience, or if you have any story, would you tell us how you cut short of the long curve of trust and generate it like that very quickly? You have some ideas or some tips?
Yeah, I guess so. I laugh a little bit when you say that, because there's obviously so many examples. I'm just trying to think of some just kind of come to mind, because you have so many different personality types, and you don't know what's going on with this person. I mean, they might just bite your head off one second, but then, when you kind of break down the barriers a little bit, and, then, like you said, I guess some of it's learned, some of it's comes naturally. Maybe it comes naturally also just over time and having done it a lot. So if you're great at cold calling, which I love to do, and I think I'm pretty good at it, and like to do it because I've done so much of it. And that kind of goes back to when I was working as a captive agent, again, early 90s, a lot of this sales background stuff. But, as a captive agent with MetLife, my sales manager, the first thing he did when I walked in the door is gave me a styrofoam cup, day one, with 100 pennies in it. So this kind of goes back to discipline that we were talking earlier. And so I would pour that cup out, a styrofoam cup with 100 pennies out on my desk in the morning. And then I would start making phone calls. And I couldn't just not just to call anybody to put the penny in the cup. It was having to speak to a decision maker who makes a decision about the insurance needs in one form or another for the household. So that was important. And then, I made it a point. Sometimes I'm at the office till I'd be there at 8 o'clock in the morning. And I might be there till 8 or 9 o'clock at night, because I've got appointments in between. I've got paperwork to do, things like that. But this is where the difference maker really comes in when you're talking about success. And I'll get back to your question, but is about having that discipline. So we'll go back to that for a second because it's so vital. And, there were so many nights where, I was there to 8 or 9 o'clock at night because even if I had to call the next time zone, central time zone, in order to not call anybody past 8 o'clock at night, I would do that to get my 100 pennies in the cup. And so that's so important. But, and then so you're talking about that's, more on the phone sales side, and that's even harder. It's also different between selling tangible and non-tangible products and services. So that's a whole different ballgame there that we could talk about. They're very, very different on how you're building trust. What you have in person, you have a lot more opportunity. That's why I love to go, and you're going to find out this afternoon why we love to go cold calling and get out there in person.
Yes.
Because you're just all your anxiety is going to melt away, and you're going to find your own little groove, and you're going to find your way that you like doing things, that you like to introduce yourself or what have you. And there's a couple little things that you can that I can help with. They're going to help break down barriers right off the bat. So it's not just a matter of being really good at it as much as it is doing it a lot. And I think that's how you become. So the repetition, obviously, the mother of learning. But that definitely comes into play.
Yeah, going out there, practicing, and you could be able to shorten the amount of time it takes for you to generate trust. One thing you mentioned about the importance of going out there, meeting in person. Mm-hmm. I already mentioned to you that I have preference for introversion, which basically means I have to motivate myself, put on the calendar before I go out and do things in person. But the statistics shows that that's very important because one statistics is old but still relevant. It shows that for you to be credible and likable, 58% of that comes from visual, which means what people see, interact with you, your energy, your appearance, and stuff like that. Only 35% from your voice, and from your words, only 7%, which basically means if I am using a phone, I only have like 7 plus 35, 42% chance. It's not even 50%. It's like 42% to be liked, to convince, and to appear credible. But if I do Zoom, it increases a little bit. But it doesn't come close to go out there in person doing it. And I brought this up because I know a lot of friends, colleagues who are having this kind of introverts preference, and they don't want to go out, and they want to always contact clients either via Zoom or over the phone. Email. And so, I mean, if you think about it, email 7%, text 7%, especially if you are communicating with someone who doesn't know you. If you're talking about serious stuff, especially in the industry, you and I, it involves millions of dollars, hundreds of thousands of dollars. You can imagine how hard it is to communicate using email or text. The temptation, however, is now because of technology, we have a lot of platforms, and it's tempting to really to be always virtual. I challenge myself and I challenge our audience. We have to carve out time to go out and network. Right now, every week, I go out at least 3 times. I force myself. Yesterday in the morning, I was out there. This afternoon, I'm going to be out with you. And something will come up Friday or during the weekend, or I will find something to go out in person. Do you want to say a couple of things about the importance of being out there in person, especially now in the era of TikTok, social media?
I've got so much to say on this. I mean, this could be a whole different session about being old school. So yeah, I like to be old school, not just for the sake of being it's something comfortable because I've done it so much, but also it's more personal, and people appreciate that, like a handwritten note after you meet them, and actually put a stamp on an envelope and put it in the mailbox. I mean, God forbid, right? That we do that instead of just sending out a quick email that could be easily just click and boom, it's gone out the door. I mean, I like to, put a little handwritten note, a thank you. Hey, thanks. It was great meeting you today. Thank you. Appreciate your time. If they're taking time out of their schedule to see you, especially when we're going in cold today, we're going to find some people, we're going to get some business cards, and we're going to be, following up with people. But it's just like, making that call. But going in person is very special, and you're going to see that it's a difference, because then not only do you have the going in person that you're going to see that person, but you spend time with them, you give them something, you're giving them knowledge about the market or something, giving them something back, and they'll give you something and want to help you out as well. And so maybe it's not them, maybe they're not our client, but maybe they know someone who is, right?
Yep.
And so it's all about, referrals and, asking for referrals but being top of mind and being an industry expert. But yeah, being old school, I like being old school. I don't like to use an auto dialer. I make every phone call count, and I make sure I'm getting through to the right person. If not, even if I get the wrong person on the phone, by chance, do you own any commercial real estate? What type of property do you have? Or somebody in the family owns some commercial real estate, or wants to own some commercial real estate, is what it boils down to. Have you thought about maybe investing in some commercial real estate? If you get the wrong person, don't just hang up. take advantage of that opportunity that you got someone, the fact that they said hello, you got a warm person on the line, talk to them. I mean, you never know what you might have in common with that person, or you might know. I mean, 6 degrees of separation, right? I mean, in this town, this is a small town, and I'm sure whoever's listening in your town, you'll be shocked and surprised the kind of people you're going to meet who might know your parents or your cousins or your aunts, your uncles, or your best friend. So, you got to get out there. You got to get out there, and you're going to see that. But yeah, old school, I like sending letters. I like making phone calls. I like going in person. So nothing beats that. Nothing.
Yes. What I like about you, I read a lot of books on sales, closing, and so on. One thing I have had the privilege to learn from you is you come up with something I never read or heard. For example, earlier you mentioned about, okay, you are making cold call. The right person may not be on the other side. Why would you lose the opportunity to talk to the person who just picked it up? They're not wrong prospect. I never heard of it. I never thought about it. The wrong person, I leave message to them, hey, talk to them, this and that. Now you showed the power of networking. This person, you can talk to them. By chance, do you have any commercial real estate? Do you have this or that? You have that conversation, and who knows where that takes. Definitely, right. I know you have a lot of the tips and tactics you could share with us, and maybe we'll come back again specifically to address these specific approach that you have. I remember I have a couple of them. I don't bring them up. I learned from you. For example, to go out and how to communicate with your prospect casually without appearing you're selling to them, because you're just going out there networking with them. It feels natural. Depending on the conversation, you take it to the next level. But if you rehearse and prepare everything, then they could be able to see that you are scripted, you're natural.
Well, when you're so scripted like that, and one thing goes wrong, one thing doesn't go according to plan, which is most likely, then what happens? And then you're stuck out there going, oh my gosh, I didn't prepare for this. Then you're like a deer in the headlights. You don't know what direction to go. So I like
let me call to my mentor. Let me call to my friend. Let me call my partner. And
so I would rather just go blank, just walk in the door blank, and do with nothing in your mind, and just go in there blank and just boom, whatever comes up. So, but I mean, that goes to just being prepared, being confident, knowing the market, knowing whatever it is your product is you're selling in. Just being engaging and just being a nice person, and just liking people and wanting to meet people. So, but there's definitely techniques. But you know what? I don't really call them techniques. It's just because you make them part of yourself and your style and they just become part of what you do. It's just one thing. I mean, they talk about, all the books are all about techniques and tools, and and they actually lay it all out for you in a very in a format. But I think if you just take all this stuff together and just kind of take what you like, from any book, if you can get one, even 2 things out of it that just really like, wow, this is really great, that you can use, man, that's super powerful. But you got to make it your own. You have to internalize it all and just make it yours.
I like it, because at the end of the day, whatever you learn from someone, from a book or a course or from mentorship, you have to customize it and own it, make it yours. And I agree with you. That's powerful. Because of time, let's move to the next one. The next one is
Sure.
going to be very important because we have to differentiate between influence and manipulation. There are some tactics and strategies people use. They try to persuade, they think they're influencing. Maybe they are crossing the delicate line between influencing and manipulating.
Right.
And this could be with good intentions. And I've heard some people who train and coach and tell you that, hey, just go out there and close it by all means. And they give you some techniques, tactics, which you don't like. You mentioned that earlier. Would you tell us, how do you spot and tell whether this is persuasion and influence or manipulation? And also, do you have some, you don't like the word tactic, but do you have any tactics or strategies, approach that you have that help you not to manipulate people?
Yeah, you know what? I think it goes back to what we were talking about before, and that's just about listening to your client and understanding their needs. So, like, if you're out, I mean, how many times have you been out and you're looking at something, and then you're getting all this talk. You're being sold. Basically, you're getting all the information. Here's why you should buy. Here's why you should buy. Here's why you should buy. My products are great, but they're not listening to you. You know, I had an Audi, a Q8 Audi SUV. Previously, I went into a car dealership, and I got a young salesperson, and he really wasn't listening, and steered me like the direction, wrong direction. All he was doing, talking, he was selling, and you get so busy selling and trying to, like you said, persuade, that you're forgetting you're selling to a person. And this person came in for a reason, and they have a certain need. So, I mean, obviously, if they're coming to you, you're at a car dealership, that's pretty easy. They're interested in buying a car. They're not just going to go randomly into a car dealership. So, I mean, it makes it that much easier because you have the product they want, or otherwise they wouldn't be there. So that's one thing. But, the fact, even in this situation, that I potentially I saw another car out by this other manufacturer. I thought, this is a nice looking vehicle I saw on the road. I thought, let me go in and check it out. And then this salesperson is trying to put me in a whole different direction, different price point, different everything. It wasn't even listening to my needs. So yeah, it goes back to you being sold. Then, how do you like it? You don't like it when you're being sold. Hey, of course, we all like to buy stuff, but don't sell me. I want to say yes, but give me the reasons to understand, but you got to listen to me first. And so, we have to do the same thing.
One thing I want you to help me and also others is that, yes, we should not manipulate people. Yes, we should not become transactional. But at the same time, also, we have to close. Partly because if we miss an opportunity with someone, we may never be meeting them again. We may never have it. May never have any chance. How do you reconcile that? Okay, I may have this one chance today, and I must close it. But at the same time, also, I don't want to manipulate them or pressure them so that I could close them. How do you reconcile the two?
Well, you know what? You got to distinguish between what's a true objective and what isn't, right? So usually their first objection isn't a real objection. And they would say in the books you're going to read, they're going to say the second objection is needed, maybe not even the third. They just want a confirmation. They want you to convince me why I need to buy this. Is this the reason why I need to buy this? And so I think rolling over objections, for example, and then we're getting into techniques, but yeah, you're rolling over objections, and there's a lot of good, technique, and there's a lot of good behind that, and just making sure, sometimes people just want to be assured. So I wouldn't even use the term persuaded or make it a negative, but they just want to be assured that they're getting the right product, that they're not going to have a buyer's remorse. Like they're going to go home and show it to their wife and the wife's going to hate it for whatever reason. Oh my gosh, I can't explain to you the way the salesman explained it to me, but man, this is awesome. But you don't want that. You don't want to deal with that situation. But I think just reiterate your points, reason why you got so far in this conversation. If you're at the point where they're ready to buy and they just want another, hey, we're buying for this reason or that reason, hey, you're buying because you came in here and you told me this. This is what you're looking for. And it has this, so feature, function, bridge to the benefits, right? So there's a technique or just a way of a reminder, features of the product, the function, what it does, how it works, and then you show them what the benefit of having this is and what the benefit is to them. So feature, function, bridge to the benefits. And
I'm also assuming that what you do before the encounter could be very beneficiary for you to close at the end of your conversation. Tell us a little bit about what should you do to increase your chance to close someone with one interaction.
Yeah. So you've got to know, obviously, the price is going to be an objection. You got to know what the objections are and build those potential objections into your presentation. Okay, that's the number one thing. So this way you're eliminating all the objections right up front. So during your presentation, hey, a lot of people think this, and maybe they bought this product before, but then they found out that once they had the product, they realized that, man, this is a great feature. I really had to have it, and so they've really appreciated having this feature or whatever it is. But so I think I think having it in your presentation, I guess, bottom line is what it is. Like any potential objections, once you get over the price objection, if they already know the price and you've already overcome that objection, like it's within their price range, they tell you my price point is between this and this. If you get that objection over with early on in the process, and then you already know your product, you know what you're selling, then you should know what your common objections are. And so you're dealing with those things early on in the process. So you're eliminating those. So by the time you get to the close, it's not a close. It's just it's the next stage, the next evolution in the process is for them to sign what they need to sign, or them to hand you the check or give you the credit card or whatever it is. So, you have to build all that stuff in advance. So all that stuff, where those objections are. And that's why, you just build that into your presentation.
Yeah. One thing I want you to maybe give us an example or two, the pressure on you, especially when you deal high stake deals. I know you have some deals in millions, some of them 20, 30 millions of dollars. Some of them, they may not close right there, but it takes another level of persuasion to talk to people who make decisions at that level of finance, and you must have some skill set that you have to persuade them. And if you don't mind, can you give us, without going into details, some of the things you do when you interact with high stake deals?
You know what? I think that's where your deep industry knowledge or product knowledge comes into place, because you shouldn't be nervous about those big 20, 30, 40, $50 million deals or bigger. I mean, you should treat it the same as a $500,000 deal. It essentially, I mean, there's some different layers. You're going to come in, you got more people, you might have a bunch of attorneys on both sides that you have to deal with as well. But it's essentially the same deal. You're dealing with people, and they're wanting to buy, you're wanting to sell. And if you're operating like we do in commercial real estate as a transaction broker, then you're just trying to bring the sides together and find that equitable deal where both of them is happy, and where it makes sense for both of them. And so that's the way. You can't really, the deals aren't done at a big level like that. It's all about the equity of the deal and about both sides, getting as close as possible to what they want. So, I wouldn't be any more scared of a $50, $100 million deal than I would be of a $500,000 deal or $1 million deal. So you got to get that mindset, get your mindset right, and don't make it be this big ominous thing that you've got to overcome. It's the same deals. You just might have to have a little deeper knowledge, get a little more information, and know there might be more aspects to the deal that need to be taken care of, for example. So it can get a little more complicated, especially when you have different tiers of financing involved, and like I said, you get a bunch of attorneys involved, and it always complicates things and potentially delay things a little bit. So you got to keep persevering. You got to keep working through things. But so I would say, don't be scared of any big deals, $50-30 million deals. Don't be scared of those things. Just jump right in there and don't be afraid. Just go in there like it's a small deal, and don't be nervous about it. It's the same. You're dealing with the same people. Matter of fact, it's easier to deal with those people at a much, much higher level because they're very experienced. You're not dealing with a person that has very little experience buying the $500,000 building or something might be, or whatever your higher priced, product might be versus, these people are used to these level of transactions. And when you're doing it at that high level like that, those guys, this is not their first deal. It might be your first deal. You have to let them know it's your first deal, at that level, but it's not their first deal. So you just have to act accordingly, and you got to know if you got to bring someone in, an expert that's been to that level, to know, hey, you know what? There's a couple other steps that you should be aware of, when you're transacting at this level. But treat it like any other deal. But you got to know your stuff. They will wipe the floor with you if you don't know your stuff. You don't know your product. You don't know the market. You start talking, you're going to talk yourself into a hole, and you just ruined your trust and the relationship, everything else. You have to know your stuff.
I hear two things. I will try to reconcile them, but if I mess it up, you clean it for me and you correct me. In one hand, I hear you saying that, don't worry, just have the confidence. It doesn't matter whether it's $1,000 or 1 million or 100 million. On the other side, you mentioned that you have to know what your stuff, and you have to be a trusted advisor. For them, now I could reconcile them. But as you know, human psychology, if somebody has never closed a $1,000 deal, it becomes, at least at the mind level, too much to go for 1 million. If they never closed 1 million, it becomes too much to close 10 million or 20 or 40 million. But I think, if I understand you correctly, what you're saying is that if you know your market, your product, your services, if you are the to-go-to person, if you are the domain expert, if you know what you're doing, you are approaching them as a trusted advisor, regardless of the money involved. And when you go out as a trusted advisor who has answers for them, somebody who could give them context and directions, it doesn't matter the stake. It matters that you can answer their questions. It matters that you can help them. Reaching there is the challenge. How can you become a trusted advisor, know your market, do your homework, don't worry about, am I capturing it right?
Absolutely. Yeah, you hit it right on the nose there. Yeah, you just, like you said, have the confidence to get out there. So, I know it's tough getting your first deal, for example, your first big sale, if you try to get up to a new mark and try to hit some new heights in your industry. But it's like you said, it's just about psychology and about don't psych yourself out, whatever you do. So, you got to get your own head right, but if you have the knowledge, then you're going to, then you're going to have the courage, you're going to have the strength to get out there and do it. If you have the knowledge, you're set. So be an expert.
Advice.
Be an expert.
Yep. It takes away any doubt. It takes away any little voice stopping you from going for big deals. We have left with less than 2 minutes. I want to conclude our conversation.
Sure.
If I understand it, persuasion or influencing others or sales, it has the pre-part, during conversation, and after. Even if I close, even if I persuade someone, if I don't follow up, I may not be able to have any influence, which means I need to keep my relationships. I need to follow up to my promises. I need to keep on serving them, supporting them, because there is word of mouth. It's better to have few happy customers than so many unhappy customers. It's not about just closing them, persuading them to close, and then letting them off the hook and not having any relationship after that, or keeping your promise. Do you have a couple of advices on that?
I think it starts at the beginning. So everything starts at the front of it. So your presentation, how you're engaging with the people to start off with, finding that connection, finding that bond. I mean, that's what it is. This is a people business. We're working with people ultimately. I mean, there's plenty of different pieces of real estate or whatever it is you're selling out there. You're working with people. So no matter what, it's a relationship business, and we're working with people. So have the best people skills. And like I said, everything starts in the front. The beginning of your presentation, it naturally will lead into the next step. Instead of, we'll call it the finality of it. It's just the next step in the process, which, like I said, might be signing the paper or receiving the payment or whatever it is. So, but it starts up front.
We have had a lot of great conversations so far, great insights so far. Do you have any last word, any advice, or next steps that you have for our audience?
Like I tell my stepsons, get out of your comfort zone. Get out of your comfort zone. Do stuff that you're not comfortable doing. Do stuff that you don't want to do, especially in your professional life, especially if you're in sales. If you're going to be a professional salesperson, you have to get out there, get out of your comfort zone. I cannot say this enough times. I just can't. You got to go old school. You got to go in person. You got to go meet people. Get off your phone. Stop texting people. Call them back. But get out of your comfort zone. You have to. If you don't like cold calling, then start cold calling. If you don't like going out in person and knocking on doors to meet people, then get your butt out there and start knocking on doors and get to know people. If you're shy, you're an introverted person, AZ, get out there. Forget all your notes. Leave your notes in the car. We go this afternoon. We're not going to have anything in our hand. We're not going to have anything. I'm going to put a polo shirt on, and we're going to be casual and comfortable. We're not going to have a notebook. We're not going to have a notepad. I'm not even going to bring business cards. Okay, that's how we're going to roll. So, but get out of your comfort zone, and you're going to see how much you're going to love it. I'm going to convince you, and that you're going to absolutely love doing this. You're going to want to do it every day, because you're going to have so much fun. We're going to have so much fun doing it. You're going to become the expert, and you're going to be teaching this class.
I agree with you. By the way, whenever I have a challenge to do something, I know the principle behind, which is making it a habit. Once it becomes a habit, you cannot live without that. For example, I struggle to network with people, to go out. And one of the things I did was, whether it rains, whether my car tire flattens, whatever happens, or I spill coffee on my shirt, it doesn't matter. Change the shirt, take Uber, and go there. Now, I cannot really ignore networking. I actually look forward to next week.
Go with the shirt with the coffee stain on it, and you got a story to tell.
Exactly.
Like, hey, I'm so sorry about my shirt. I know I look like a mess, but I'm here.
It's your scar.
Don't let those things ruin your prospecting, or don't let those things, whatever the rain is. I mean, you come in prospecting, knocking on a door when it's pouring out rain on, you got your umbrella. I mean, how powerful is that? People are going to be like, what the heck is this guy doing?
Yeah.
It must be, I came in here to see you for a reason. They're gonna. I mean, that says a lot that you're willing to do that.
Here is one thing. You already promised that. What we're gonna do is, you have so many things to offer, and we are unable to really go in detail, dive deep to get everything from you. But my hope is that you're gonna come back again. We can create different episodes, and we go dive deep and cover some of the topics that you mentioned. Maybe we can dive in the future. Derek, thank you very much for coming, and I look forward to meet you this afternoon and keep on working with you. I appreciate you. Anyone here, you find him on LinkedIn, on Instagram, Twitter, and also you can Google his name. You could be able to find him, learn more from him. If you have any deal out there, if you want him to represent you or list your properties, please don't hesitate. Reach out to him. Thank you very much for coming. Everyone, I appreciate you for being here. Thank you for watching this. Going forward, we're going to invite other guests, and we try our best to bring what is educational for you so that you could succeed in whatever you do, whether you're a professional, leader, entrepreneur, or investor. We'd appreciate you if you like, comment, and also share the episode. And also don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Until I see you again with another topic and another guest, wish you good luck. Thank you very much. If you need anything, reach out. Bye-bye. Thank you.